Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Defazzio, and I am the President and CEO of Circle of Friends Services. And this is Amy Iannatelli. She is the Executive Director of Circle of Friends Services. And we are here today to demonstrate a play therapy technique called Animal Genogram. Animal Genogram is based on the play genogram technique that was developed by Eliana Gill. And Eliana Gill is a noted play therapist. She's authored several books, including Post-Traumatic Play in Children, and she has developed several very good play therapy techniques that we use with our children and families in the child welfare system. So Amy is going to explain today how Animal Genogram differs from the basic play genogram that Eliana Gill developed, and then she's going to show you how to do it.
We have some variations to Eliana Gill's that were added by our friend and therapist Judy McGrath. Judy added that this would be used with just animals, and that we would also use it on a felt heart. You should note that this heart was purchased at Michael's. It's just a large felt heart that was cut into the shape of a heart, but it can also be used, the Animal Genogram can also be used on paper and can also be used in the sand tray, either by drawing a heart in the sand or just using the boundaries of the sand tray. But for today's demonstration, we're going to use the felt heart and animals. This travels well, so it's really good for in-home work. And so I'm going to go through how to do this intervention, and then we're going to talk about how to process this activity with the kids. So to start, I just put out the felt heart and I put out the animals so that they can choose and see all of them. I have a wide variety. It fits one large Ziploc bag. You should, have some aggressive animals, some smaller animals, just a good enough selection that they can choose. And then I'll prompt the child or the family to find an animal that best shows themselves and their family members or other important people to them. At that point, I let the child do their work. They can examine the animals. They may decide to choose quickly. They may decide to take their time. And during this time, I am a silent observer, just kind of noting how long it's taking them, whether or not they make quick decisions, and noting the placement on the heart. Are they very close to each other? Are they very far away from each other? And then when the child's done, then we can have time to process. And the processing, be careful I think the number one rule to processing these play activities with kids is to generally just not ask why. That's a very difficult question for kids to answer. Saying, why did you choose that? Or why is this representing your mom? They may not have the insight or the understanding of why, but allow the toys to be their language and allow them to stay in the metaphor. It gives them the therapeutic distance that they need to stay safe, yet still do the work. So processing questions really focus on noticings by the therapist and staying in the metaphor. And what I mean by that is you might say to them, I noticed that this one is very far away, or tell me more about this piece. So to demonstrate some of those processing techniques, I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to set up a play genogram, and then we're going to go through maybe some questions that you could be asking your client. So, Barbara, you can help me if you want to.
All right.
Just include some animals.
Some that stand up, perhaps.
And remember, the child, there's no rules for this. The child can decide to represent himself or his family with one animal, with several animals. They might decide to do some play while they're setting it up. All of that is okay. We allow the child to lead this process. Okay. So at some point, the child might say, okay, I'm done. Or I might suggest, okay, let me know when you're done with your creation and we can talk about it, or you can tell me a story about it. These are similar processing questions that I use for sand tray. But some of the more specific questions I might ask a child about a play genogram is I might say, I noticed that these two animals are kind of far away. They're almost not in the heart. Can you tell me about that? And they'll have opportunity to explore that. Maybe it's a distant family member, maybe it's somebody that they haven't had contact with but they would like to. I don't know. This activity gives kids a chance to explore those issues through the use of play. Things that they would not really have the language to be able to talk about. And the therapist is giving them the language to be able to process this.
It's almost like a trauma narrative. They're almost able to put together a trauma narrative of their story without having to sit down and tell you what happened.
Absolutely, and this gives them the therapeutic distance that they need to be able to process that trauma without actually having to say things out loud that may be very difficult, very scary, or most importantly, things that they don't have memory or words for because the trauma happened at a pre-verbal stage. So, let's see, what else do we want to talk about with this? I think that this activity has, in my practice, has been very helpful. Kids enjoy it, they find it playful and fun, and they get a lot of really good work out of it. They look forward to these activities.
So you don't ever say which one is you, or unless they might say, this is me.
Not necessarily do I ever say, is this one you? I really let the child lead that process. They may self-identify, like, this one is me. And then I say, okay, so you're the cow, or you're the animal with horns. I try not to make any interpretations or judgments ahead of time. I let them do that. So I would not say, oh, he's very angry and scary and he's alone by himself. That might not be the intent that the child wanted. So I might say, oh, this dinosaur, he's showing his teeth and he's over there by himself. I just state the facts of what's going on. That allows the child to put his own interpretation on it and his own intent, so he can say, yes, he's showing his teeth because he's protecting the horse. So we went from a very angry dinosaur to someone who's being very protective. And we have to give the kids room to be able to process, though, and we want to accept all of their answers. We want to be accepting of anger, of sadness, and we don't want them to think that we're looking for any particular answer.
Now, when you've done sand tray and you train in sand tray, you always say to take a picture of the sand tray. Yes. Is that a protocol here?
Absolutely. I usually have my phone on me, so when they're done and they're ready, I get their permission to take a picture, and I'll say, okay, if you're all done and you would like me to take a picture, I can, and I believe 100% of the time they have wanted me to take a picture. And I think that's important for several reasons, especially for in-home therapists. We have to pack up and go home eventually, so you end up having to undo their work, and undoing a child's world in front of them is not a good practice. So being able to take a picture allows the child to know that this world is preserved somewhere. I'll let them look at the picture when I'm done, and that gives them that validation. I also don't undo it myself. We share in this activity of undoing it, and I let them do it first. And we'll put the animals away. The other purpose for the photo is really for the therapist and maybe for the client later to look back on that and for other noticings, things that weren't exactly seen in that session, maybe for documentation purposes and also for supervision purposes.
Well, and some of these that you have shown me when you've brought the pictures back, like you might have a scary relative that did something to a child, and that's why that character is way on the outside.
Right.
And what you might be looking for, if I'm hearing you say this correctly, as the child begins to heal, you might see those scary figures maybe coming closer. You might see protective figures coming more around the child, much as you do in the sand tray.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly like sand tray, doing this activity over time. Again, this is a good assessment tool and just general play therapy tool. If you use this over time, you may see themes, you may see dynamics changing depending on what's going on with the client. So always good to revisit this every so often.
And approximately how long does this intervention take? Knowing that we are limited to the 50-minute hour, how long would you say this generally takes?
Generally, I would say this takes 30 to 40 minutes. By the time you set it up, explain it, give them time to make their creation, time for processing, time for taking the picture and cleaning up, you've gone about 30, 40 minutes. I think some kids might take longer if they have a lot to say or it took them a long time. Some kids shorter if they're having some difficulty processing. But I would plan for the whole session. I wouldn't try to do several things in this, with this intervention. So. And
I can certainly say from the times that we have spent looking at the pictures and going over them after sessions that the themes are very, very common. The themes of trauma, the themes of where the protective figure is, even if the mother has been missing for a long time. We've had some children that have put protective figures right around them even though the mom is gone. And you can really, again, get the trauma narrative, get their themes of protection, what it is that they need, maybe who they're afraid of. So there's a tremendous amount that you've been able to get out of this technique.
Yes, I often do this for assessments on children that I've just met, and they've been able to share things that they wouldn't have normally been able to share with me verbally, especially without developing rapport. This just is a really easy task for them to do. So I recommend it in the beginning stages of therapy and then to be revisited later.
Okay, well, Amy, thank you so much for sharing this with us today, and I hope that anyone who is able to see this will see what a really effective technique this is for working with trauma. So thank you.
Thanks, you're welcome. So good luck to you guys using this technique, and we will have more play therapy interventions to offer. Thank you.